inspiration road that will take you there. Be informed and stay in tune. Uplift your soul and heal your wounds. Welcome to Bashment Bay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bashment Bay TV. I'm your host, Sharon Cummings.
I'm Paulette Samuels. Welcome.
I am so excited about today's show. I think it is going to be a very interesting conversation with our special guest. Last show that we did on independence, what you thought of it?
I thought that really hits home because of the 60th anniversary and the celebration all around the globe. As a matter of fact, I saw that the Niagara Falls was lit up in the Jamaican flag color, which was very exciting. And it was all around the world. Someone was doing something, celebrating just as we did. Just show how big our country, so small and yet so big. It reached across the whole sphere. Everyone was involved, and our show really hit it off. And Althea took it on for us. She did. She brought it all the way home.
Yes. I cannot believe the amount of views that we got. Althea Hewitt, thank you so much for sharing the episode. I mean, I appreciate it so much. And your performance was awesome.
It was awesome. And how many views we got again for that one episode?
2,000. Can you believe it?
It's just mind blowing. I can't believe it.
Wow.
2,000 views for that particular show.
I guess people really enjoyed that show.
Right, they did.
She did an awesome performance. She performed just for us, the Bashment Bay TV audience. But it's like she was on stage with people.
On stage doing what she was doing.
It was awesome.
Exactly. She was just awesome. Out of this world. She was, yes.
But today's show, we're gonna take a serious look on sexual abuse, especially among young children. So we'll be right back.
Estella's legacy. Grandma Estella, I have a question. Written by Sharon Cummings, Tamika Jones, and Charmaine Russell.
Welcome back to the show. It is estimated that approximately 35% of women worldwide have experienced sexual harassment in their lifetime. However, in most countries with data available on rape, including the US, fewer than 40% of those women seek help, and fewer than 10% seek assistance from law enforcement. That's a big percentage, very large. And our topic today will really dive into that and see how we can help to sort of like alleviate some of what is happening or even hopefully eradicate it.
Definitely. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Children's Bureau report that 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys are victims of child sexual abuse. Self-report studies show that 20% of adult females and 5 to 10% of adult males recall a childhood sexual assault or sexual abuse incident. During 1 year in the US, 16% of youth ages 14 to 17 had been sexually victimized. According to a 2003 National Institute of Justice report, 3 out of 4 adolescents who have been sexually assaulted were victimized by someone they knew. Today we have a guest that will help us to understand more of the trauma sexual abuse causes. Our guest today is a former 2019 mayoral candidate in the city of Miami Gardens with a passion for learning. Our guest obtained a bachelor's degree in health administration and a master's degree in business administration, making her the first in her family to attend and graduate from a university. Her academic and community advocacy earned her an honorary Doctor of Philosophy. Born in Kingston, Jamaica, and migrated to Nassau, the Bahamas, at the age of 9, several years later, she moved to South Florida, where she now resides. An anti-human trafficking advocate and founder and CEO of Female Development World Organization, Inc. Was founded in 2013. It's a 501c3 organization that includes programs designed to raise awareness for the prevention of human trafficking, as well as helping survivors to recondition their mind, body, and soul. Dedicated and innovative activists who believe in human rights, especially those affecting the development of our youth. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Laverne Dare to Bashment Bay TV. Welcome, Dr. Laverne Dare to Bashment Bay TV.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure, and I'm so looking forward to this interview with you and your co-host on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go directly to my question.
Yes.
We know that sex trafficking is prevalent, and we all must worry about our children's safety. We try to tell them to be mindful of the people they associate with. But I want to address the most immediate danger many children, both boys and girls, faces from family member, someone they know in their home. Are there telltale signs that a parent can see that maybe their child is being sexually abused? In most cases, the child does not say anything when this happens.
Yes. When you're absolutely right. Most of the children who are abused knows their abusers. And their abusers oftentimes are those in the home, could also be those if they attend any extracurricular activities, could be also family, friends when children do sleepovers, or, when they go to certain events, right? Sometimes, as scary as this may be, as parents, we trust our children to go on field trips. And these field trips, a lot of times, our children are not there with us because we trust them with chaperones. And so oftentimes it could happen there as well. So a lot of times you don't know, or you can see the signs. And believe it or not, it is such a problem to where you have the parents who were also abused, and now their children are being abused. So science would say, okay, well, if you're parents who've been down that road, how is it that you can't tell when your child or this has happened to your child? Well, it's not that easy. Because one, as a parent, you're sometimes doing 2 to 3 jobs. So therefore you have to leave the child and with a caregiver and things could happen. So you don't always know, but there are sometimes you can see it when that child, especially if it was someone who is very vocal, outgoing, someone who is just, believe they're on top of the world and ready to change the world. And then all of a sudden you start noticing this person becoming withdrawal, don't want to talk as much, not smiling or laughing as much. There's something there internally. Another sign scientifically is a child who never wets his or her bed, begin to wet the bed. So or even if that child who used to love going to visit uncle or auntie or grandma, all of a sudden they don't want to go to that home anymore. These are signs that you should look for. But for me, my focus is always on prevention. So my goal is to try to prevent it before it happens, rather than waiting until a sign that most of us may catch or may not catch. And by then, the damage is already done to that child's self-esteem. And of course, that now leads into many other issues. So the key for me is have open conversations with your children so they can trust you to come to you and talk to you, regardless of what it is that's bothering them. It don't even have to be about if they're being abused. It could be a bad day at work. You start it off that way, so that this way they build a comfort level in coming to the parents and talking to them.
Wow. That is so true, in that most of the time the parents don't want to believe what is happening with the child. They push it aside. And I've had a case back home in Jamaica that I knew about where this took on a whole different level, because it was the father that was molesting the child, and then the father was abusing the mother so that she couldn't tell. She had to put up with that. So it can take on different levels of what is happening. It's not, sometimes it's not so much the child is afraid that the parent won't believe them. Sometimes the parent is a part of it, not because they want to, but they're forced to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1 in 4 girls experience sexual abuse through childhood, and 1 in 13 boys. So think about this. You line up girls in the front row, and then you line up boys in the back row, and 13 boys, you're guaranteed you're going to get 1 who will experience it. Now, the problem with that is boys are most definitely will not come because of the way society perceives boys should be. So that's even another silent cry that we need to address. And when you look at the cost of child abuse to society, it has cost $9.3 billion in total cost in the United States. And this is through incarceration and so many other things that are affecting children through this sport.
Many times we think that it's only the adults that we must be mindful of when it comes to sexual abuse. Do you find that the younger the child victim, the more likely it is that the perpetrator is a juvenile?
It does happen. There are statistics out there that there are child-on-child abuse. So that's even another sign that you have to look at. And oftentimes when you find a child who's the abuser perpetrator, they themselves have been abused. So it's a repetitive cycle. And that's a scary thing. And that's a piece that a lot of parents don't want to believe. But there are a lot of children, especially in their teenage years, who will target younger children because that experience happened to them. So they're repeating their experience.
Wow. It is just a vicious, very, very vicious cycle.
A very vicious cycle, very vicious. And this is why I stress so much the work that I do on awareness. Every 68 seconds, and these stats I'm presenting are from RAINN.org. every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. And every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. Is a child. Meanwhile, only 25 out of every 1,000 perpetrators will end up in prison. 25 out of every 1,000 will end up in prison. Well, why is that? Well, that's because most of the perpetrators are in the home. So that's where the silent crime happens that most people will not know. And oftentimes you have the parents who knows that the children are being abused and turn the blind eye, choose not to say anything. Why? Because that abuser may be the breadwinner in the home, maybe paying the bills in the home. That abuser may be so high in society, so highly ranked society, that if you say anything, it may kill your status, or, you know, and to a lot of people, their status means more to them than their own children. It's a sick world that we live in. When we talk about mental health, that's a big area that we need to focus on, because when you mention the word mental health, people are on the street looking for crazy people. But no, go in your home.
Yeah.
You know, even the anxiety that you're trying to deal with on a daily basis as a normal person is a mental health issue. And if we start tackling these issues at a small, when they're small, from their small, and acknowledge and realize, then we won't have to, or perpetrators won't have to succumb to some of these things that they have to carry out.
That is so true.
So true.
You know, I've had conversation with a lot of women, you know, because I do the theater, and sometimes I go to different meetings, and I would say 2 in 5 women that I've met have gone through this trauma. And these women are in their 50s and 60s. But because they have not dealt with it, there was no resolve when they were younger. They didn't tell anyone that it still affects them today in their daily lives.
Yeah, that is so true. And again, think about it. And now I'm thinking back in Jamaica, we're from a culture of toughness and strength. So talking to a counselor, oh no, that's a sign of weakness. You can't talk to a counselor, they'll think we're crazy. So those ideas and thoughts are dismissed. So these women and men who have experienced this, they just go through life bottling all of that because the culture say you deal with it, you don't express it. If you express it, you're weak. If you deal with it, you're strong. But that dealing with it, let me explain something to you. In life, you get older, and I'm speaking based on my experience that I am going through now, taking care of an elderly parent, at no fault of hers. This illness that she has is something that as you get older, you can't express yourself, but those memories are still there of things that you have gone through, whether in your adult or even in your childhood, because every now and then, you know, she'll bring up something that happens when she's a child. So imagine you're going through something, and I'm just using this as an example. Imagine you're going through something and you cannot express it by speaking it or saying what it is, but emotionally you're still feeling it. Do you know what that is? That is now anxiety bottled up inside of you. So as an elder person or a more mature person now who dealt with this, yes, you can still talk, you can still express yourself verbally, but you don't, because that's what society says you shouldn't do. However, you're still dealing with this issue on the inside. You're not expressing it to anyone so anyone can tell you, it's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault. You didn't do this to yourself. Because sometimes that's all it takes for someone to hear. It wasn't your fault. So because they're not saying that, they're dealing with it, trying to process it And then before you know it, that, you now bring on these health issues. You have high blood pressure. You start having diabetes. You start having all these things happening to you, and you can't realize, well, your mental health, again, has a lot to do with your physical health and your emotional health. So you cannot say, I'm going to the gym every day, I'm strong, I'm doing good, but you're not taking care of this, because eventually that's on the inside trying to come out, and you have to release it.
Wow.
Definitely. I spoke to a particular person once, and that person said that when she finally expressed to a loved one what had happened to her, the person said, "Oh, get over it. That was a long time ago." It reminds me of when people say, "Oh, get over slavery. That was a long time ago." But and she's having a very difficult time because she feels there's no one that understands what she's going through. And her whole life is just, it's in standstill, because she doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yes.
And I find a lot of females are going through that. Some maybe you could say they're a little stronger. I don't know if that's the right word, that they can live a normal life. But there are a lot of females that cannot live a normal life because of what happened. And the other thing that I've noticed, sometimes people have flashbacks and they're not sure if it really happened or not. But there's so many details that it's like, that had to have happened.
Right. And it somehow affects their relationship, male-female relationship going forward, because they're like, every time there's some who like refrain from even having sex because it brings back so much vivid memories of what they had gone through. So,
and these are again just a few of the trauma or traumatic effects that stays with an individual. And yes, you're right, it affects relationships. Oftentimes individuals are in healthy, beautiful marriage with children, and they are struggling to deal with it. They put the best out for the children and the family, but when that light goes off, they're dealing with those demons, and sometimes the family cannot see it. So again, this is why it's so important that no matter how old you are or how long this has happened to you, it's never too late to seek counseling. You mentioned there's an organization that when I started this work here in Broward County called the Nancy J. Cotterman Center. They deal with sexual assault victims. So I would recommend that I can send you the number that you can also put on the screen for this, or give it to your viewers, or have it, in case anyone asks. And if they reside in Broward County, they can give them a call regardless of how old you are, and they can advise you if they can't provide any service, but they can definitely give you some referral to someone or some services that can provide assistance. Can I just read this article not an article, but the statistics here, right? Show that child sexual abuse is a revolving door for other issues, societal issues that we're dealing with. So in an article published in 2013 by the Miami Herald, the estimated population of female child sexual assault victims in Florida prisons were 918,684. The estimated portion of female inmates with a history of child sexual assault were 35%. The annual cost per Florida inmate was $17,338. So think about this. Per inmate, the annual cost in prison to take care of them was $17,330. And these are the sexual assault victims. and the estimated annual correction costs attributed to female child sexual assault victims incarcerated in Florida prison for violent crimes total of $15.9 million. In addition, the Center for Prevention of Abuse, in line with organizations such as Florida's United Way to End Human Trafficking and Slavery Now, and the Blue Campaign, are uniting communities around the world to educate and raise awareness. So when you talk about child sexual abuse, right, and you see the incarceration, this does not even include the illegal or the substance abuse or alcohol related sicknesses that individual. This is just the incarceration part. So when we're talking about, the drug epidemic, where so many people are just dying on the street, look at where it started. Look at where it started. It started in the home with these individuals with these traumas that they have to deal with. So this is a societal issue. When I started working with a Florida legislator on one of the bill that my organization and I worked on to make Florida now the first state in the United States to start teaching human trafficking, sex trafficking education in schools, there was a doctor from the Department of Education who stood and says, the number one childhood trauma for those victims of trafficking is child sexual abuse. Yeah. Think about it. Childhood trauma, the number one. Yes, you have child abuse. Yes, you have all these things that children experience, but the number one childhood trauma of victims who have been sexually trafficked or just in human trafficking in general is child sexual abuse. So it's important, and I am so glad that you are having this conversation, because we need to have it more. It's about prevention. We should be in these statistics.
Right. I also have to add, while we're talking about child sexual abuse, that a lot of people are now seeing what child sex trafficking is all about. And that's a big thing. I mean, to the part where I hate to say this, but some politicians are involved. That's how big it is.
TV, it's out there.
Yeah, so they're involved and stuff like that. Even traveling abroad, there's some airlines that will hand that out to you when you're boarding, about what to look for, what to look around for while you're in flight. If anything doesn't look right, tell a flight attendant that something doesn't look right with that man and that child, or that woman and that child. So, it's all over. Yes. And the child sex trafficking business is a big business right now, as you may have known. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's, and I smile as we're talking about this, but let me tell you, it's nothing to smile about. It's nothing to smile about, especially in my line of work in the advocacy of seeing, hearing, and realizing, and is able to connect the dots, because as you mentioned about the politicians that are being involved, let's use West Palm Beach as an example with the Jeffrey Epstein situation there, and you look at it, it's the elites of the elites, right? And so this is how this thing gets hidden. And this is where I say in the past about an individual status in the community, that a lot of times people know these things are happening, but it is drowned by the individual status who's creating the harm. Because when you even think about with sticking with the Jeffrey Epstein story, to see that it extended as far back to the UK, coming here in the higher ranks of leadership and government, it should make everybody's skin crawl. It should be scary, because these are people that we are trusting and believing in for public safety. These are people that you vote into office to protect your community. And these are the very same people that are hurting our children and damaging the community and impacting this incarceration issue that we're dealing with that I just mentioned. So if you start connecting the dots, this should tell you that you do not put anybody on a pedestal because of their status. Because at the end of the day, you pinch them, they're as humanistic, they're a human being just like you and I, which means that they're good and evil running through their blood, just as you and I. It's maybe just because now they're on a higher status than I do, but that doesn't mean their wrong is right. That doesn't mean what they do should be accepted. So I say that to say this. So let me say what human trafficking is so everybody understand. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercing someone to obtain some type of labor or sex act. So yes, there are individuals who voluntarily give consent, but always know a child under the age of 18 here in the US, and I believe it's 16 in Jamaica, cannot consent.
Right.
And these are the children that are being abused. So therefore, they're being forced, they're being coerced into these types of acts, and it's wrong. It's wrong. So let's now talk about the community at large. Do you know one in the community of Palm Beach know that this was happening?
Oh, they do.
Of course.
It's hard because people know, grown folks, they see things, they hear things, but they don't say anything at all. And that's where the repetitive cycle. Secondly, vote matters. And I know we're talking about, you know, child sexual abuse, but you can't talk about this without including politics. You cannot talk about this without knowing that the people you put in office, they can put a dent to this. And this is why my organization, Female Government World Organization, chose to take a path where we work with elected officials. We go directly into their office, we educate them. We meet them at the table. We educate them because a lot of times they themselves don't even know. And it's important for them to know. When we worked the state and House legislator back in 2018 with Barrington Russell at the time, I don't know if you guys know him, but when he was serving in the House, he was the first person that attended one of our community outreach that we did. When he was there and his staff heard, and the topic at the time was on child sexual abuse. The primary topic was child sexual abuse. But when we started making the connection and he heard, immediately after the event, he directed his staff, Pat, I don't know if you guys know Pat Emil Young, he directed her to start working with me to now see how his office in the States can help. And that's where my advocacy began. And although the bill that was proposed, and I want to also acknowledge then Senator Perry Thurston, because he was a sponsor of it in the Senate, and Barrington Russell was a sponsor of it in the House. And then, of course, when Barrington left, then it became Patricia Williams. But the bill did very well moving through the legislation. However, it didn't pass. But luckily, we also worked with the school board member here in Dade County, Dorothy Vendros Mendenhall, who got her colleagues on board to now put a resolution in place for Dade County. And that extended up now into the Department of Education, where although the bill didn't pass, the Department of Education adopted a policy making Florida the first state to start teaching human trafficking education in schools. So, and if you look at the timeline, these were happening right after the Jeffrey Epstein story became, the work we started, and then right after, because we did a press release in Tallahassee, and right after, shortly after, the Jeffrey Epstein starts becoming public and you start seeing it, and then it became a trickling effect, leading down into his death. So I'm glad you mentioned about the politician and you brought that into the conversation, because individuals need to know that your vote matters.
Yeah.
Your vote an election have consequences. So you cannot talk about prevention without including the lawmakers and the elected officials.
Totally agree.
Totally agree. True. That is so true. And, you know, it's not just girls who are being trafficked. This happened with males also, little boys. So
Yeah.
I think, as you said, voting is right now, it's the most important thing, because even to get off the topic a bit, you know, look what's happening in the schools, you know, where they're taking out certain factual history, you know, that children can't learn. So
I don't mean to cut you, but you know what my biggest fear is, as you mentioned that, my biggest fear with the current governor that we have in place, that all that work with the way he's axing these books and these education materials in the school, my biggest fear is that one day I'm going to turn the TV on and see that he's now going to reverse what the Department of Education did.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of that. That is my biggest fear right now.
Yeah. I thought of that while you were speaking, because I see what's happening. Yeah.
I say to people, elections have consequences. Because remember what I just said. Myself worked so hard for this.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny, because I sort of like hold to the fact my mom always says, don't worry about people who are going with all these things and planning all these things, because I don't know, you must have heard this saying, man plan and God wipes out.
Yes, I've heard that. And
so I'm holding to that truth.
I was just about to say, my mother used to say that to me a lot. Thank you for reminding me. I am going to walk by faith and stop being in fear, because when we did this campaign, myself and several other individuals and organizations came together to lobby Tallahassee, making phone calls, walking the Capitol. I mean, we put a lot of work into this. So yeah, I need to just trust God that either God has a plan, which I know he always do, or folks will be wise enough to see that they need to get up and go vote and know what they're voting for. Right. Don't just get up and vote, but know what they're voting for and who they're voting for.
A lot of people are ignorant to really what's going on in their community. You know, they just go and, you know, whatever one piece of something that someone said, yeah, I'm going to vote for that, instead of voting for what they really need. They're always voting against their needs, you know, and what's right.
I like how you say that. They vote against it. That is so key with exactly what you just said. Because think about it. You come now and I'm telling you, go vote for that person. I went to school with him. Go vote for that person. My mother knows him. My mother went to school with him. But guess what? That person is the person who is fighting against my cause, my whole human trafficking. So now, if I go vote against because you told me to vote against him, but I don't really know that person, and then I vote for him, and then before you know it, my cause just went out the door.
Exactly. They're voting on favoritism.
There you go.
They're not voting on integrity. They're not voting on what the person, you know,
on the issues that is affecting
and stuff. Exactly.
Issues are out of the now. It's not about issues anymore. It's just about,
you see that, right?
You know what it's all about.
Exactly.
We won't go there.
Yes, I know. We need to have another show just on this.
Definitely.
You see, this is what I said the time when we get carried away in the conversation.
Yes. But, and it's a healthy conversation. Honestly, it's a conversation we need to have more often. Yes. It's a conversation that we need our children to hear.
Yeah.
And if you ask, well, why did you choose this path in the work that you choose to do? Well, think about it. If we can penetrate the schools and start teaching these children the danger signs, so they know what to look out for,
right?
Then that's the first start in someone saying something in a child can hopefully go to their guidance counselor and let that guidance counselor know that there's this man lurking outside the school, or that my uncle touched me in a way that I wasn't comfortable. I don't really know how, but it just doesn't feel right. So penetrating the schools, going directly to where the message needs to be heard, and that's the children.
Yeah.
So I want to say this, and I know I may be early in putting this out there. You guys are the first that's going to hear this. So we just recently hosted our annual gala, because Protect the Children Gala, because part of what we do community outreach as awareness. You have to be able to stand on the mountaintop and sing or preach a message. But during the process of planning the gala, I met someone at the Broward Sheriff's Office and sharing my story. And she said, well, do you know the Broward Sheriff's Office gives away funding for organizations that does this type of work? Well, we've never gotten a grant before. I've tried myself, but it's just so tedious. I just didn't. I focused on donations, but I knew eventually that I would have grown into where I needed grants. So I applied. She sent to me the link and said, okay, go for it. You have less than I believe it was less than a week or 2 weeks to get this grant. I dropped everything that I was doing and applied for the grant. Well, the grant that I propose now is to work directly with children. So we are going to now take the message anywhere in the community that will hear us. So we're proposing to work with children from 8 to 14 to start teaching them topics such as human trafficking awareness and prevention, child sexual abuse awareness and prevention, environment. People do not connect the two or see the importance of their environment and how it relates to crime, as well as the arts. So I packaged this together and submitted it to the Sheriff's Office, and we just found out that we're being recommended to be awarded $10,000.
Awesome.
So this will be our first grant. Yes.
Awesome.
This will be our first grant. And of course, we are in the federal system. I made sure when I formed this organization that I structured it to where we can get federal funding as well as local funding. So now it's been since 2013. Now it's 2022, and we're finally starting to see a path of support from we've always been getting support from local, but now we're starting to see that we're getting support from law enforcement, and we're targeting law enforcement. Think about that. Working directly with law enforcement. You know how important that is for our community?
It is.
So important. So we have our work cut out for us, but we're excited.
Wonderful.
Definitely. That is so awesome, because
Wonderful.
It's really needed. It all begins with the kids, because they are our future.
Definitely. Yes.
Yes. Protect the children. That is I will say that going to my bed, going to my grave.
Yeah.
Protect the children. They are the future. Protect the children. They are the future.
Yes.
Protect the children. They are the future. And if I can stand here and I can try to restore, an elderly person as much, but as we all know, we're set in our ways. It's harder to convince someone to go and get the help that they need in hopes that they will. But if you can start working on the minds of the individual to educate them prior to them getting to that point, that's the first start of changing the world, or putting a dent into this that's been affecting us for years. This sex trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry. About it. Multi-billion. People are making billions of dollars off the back of human beings. Human beings. That's not, I don't think that was God's intention.
No.
For us. I know that's not God's intention for us.
No.
Well, we could go on
and on.
because this is such a relevant conversation. And
Yes.
I would love to have you back again because I would like to continue this conversation.
Yes.
But Dr. Laverne Dare,
Sure.
thank you so much for educating us today on these topics. It's very important, and I do hope that we were able to help, if even one person today that
That's true.
watches this show.
Yeah.
So I
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much.
And I would like to just give a shout out to my board of directors. I call them my ghost board because they have been with me since inception, and stand behind the movement and helped me in whatever way that I need behind the scenes. So my face is out there, but just don't think that I'm the only one doing the work. I have an army behind me, of volunteers, community members, and I just want to let you know that I truly appreciate you. I also serve on the board for E4Life, so I'm an international board member for E4Life. E4Life is the only organization in Jamaica that serves young girls who are sexually abused by their abusers, contact STDs, or get pregnant by their abusers. So E4Life is an organization that provides community outreach, restoration, and resources. And at some point, I would love to bring the founders on, invite you to bring them on and interview them as well, because they're doing an amazing job in Jamaica. But you think about how prevalent this is in Jamaica. So, they have their work cut out for them. So I just want to give a shout out to them and thank you. This is where it begins.
Right.
This is where it begins. This is where awareness begins. And as much awareness as we can get is what we need to end this. So thank you so much and continue the great work.
Thank you so much for joining us, and kudos to your folks, your board. Kudos to everyone. This is very enlightening. I'm so happy that we have you here this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate you all.
Sure,
thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Estella's Legacy book series, first edition. Grandma Estella, I have a question.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the show, which was very, to me, and I hope to you, the audience, very informative, highlighting some of the things that we need to do and things we need to look for when it applies to our kids and sexual abuse. And we need to, as parents and elders, we need to listen to our kids when they tell us that something is wrong. Do not shove it aside, because then that leads to a bigger problem, and which is harder, I should say, to handle. So we will see you on Sunday, September 11th, for another mind-blowing, sort of like heart-wrenching, and I'm trying to use all the adjectives I can, something that you will want to listen to. We'll see you on Sunday, September 11th. Thank you.
Yes, Paulette, we're looking forward to that. I know that most parents think that they shouldn't talk to their children about sex at a young age, but that is leaving them vulnerable to predators. Talking about personal safety and sex creates a protective bond between parent and child, increases confidence for both, and instill knowledge that makes children and teens much less vulnerable. We need to listen and know how to talk to our children by learning how to recognize and react responsibly to child sexual abuse. After all, it's all about keeping them safe, because they are our future. Unresolved, the victim becomes a perpetrator, and the cycle continues. If you would like to contact us, if you have a question, if you have any suggestion, just email me at dejavutheater.fl@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you have any questions about today's topic, please contact us. And the information given, if you feel that you need some help, please call the number on the screen. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe. We would really appreciate it. So, thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Where's your glass?
My coffee. It's too early to drink. It's coffee time.
You know what? It's water. It's too early for water.
You can get away with that. You can tell anyone anything with that glass. So pretty.
It's water.
Yeah, so, I haven't had my coffee yet. So.
And I have my coffee too. Because we had to tape early in the morning, not always usual evening. So, but yeah.
This is an eye opener. Early in the morning.
Early in the morning. Yeah, I got up at 5 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, no, I was later than that. I was about maybe 6:15 or so. Yeah. I'm glad we got through all of this, even after a little technical glitch. Yeah. We're good. And she was good. She was
she was awesome. So much information in her head. And I mean,
yes.
Awesome.
Tune in to Bashment Bay. Tune in to Bashment Bay. Tune in to Bashment Bay.